This video is part of the Temu Share Your Shopping Ideas campaign. The idea is to find at least 5 products and share them with your viewers. Well, I've purchased so many products from Temu that I just couldn't pick a favorite. So what I did is I chose 5 favorite projects featuring Temu products or supplies, and I show you what they look like on the website or the app, and then I show you the video in which I use them, and then I give you the link in my description box. And then I give you my code and the coupon code, so you can shop other products as well. So I hope you enjoy. Let's get to crafting. What you need for this first project is the 7-pack of fabric, and that's what it looks like on the Temu app. Some wood rings and some floral ribbon or fabric. Now let's get to crafting. Okay, for project number 2, we're making some fabric flowers. I have those small wood hoops there from Temu. There's the inspiration in the bottom left. I'll have that creator's info in my description box below. This is a 10-inch wood square. It came in a pack with all different sizes and shapes, and I think it's from Amazon, though it could be from Temu. I have a bunch of different kinds of fabric that I got in various places. And you'll see that larger shower ring hoop there. I end up not using it. So I'm just going to tear strips because we want to make a whole bunch of strips of fabric to attach to the hoops to make the flower. So I have that ribbon, that fabric ribbon that I tore in half. This is also some spare lace that I used on a project in the fall. And I might have gone a little bit overboard preparing the strips of fabric. I decided I wanted to add a little bit of burlap because it's sort of like the whole rustic farmhouse vibe it offers. So I just kind of created a pattern, you know, like burlap flower, stripe, heart, and then I just repeated it like 3 or 4 times until the hoop was completely full, and then I trimmed it. But I needed a break from tying knots, so I tapped out some burnt umber acrylic paint and I rubbed it into my wood pieces. So this is the palette. I was planning on having the wood square just sit in between the slats, but I kind of made a mistake while I was preparing the flowers, and I'll show you how I deal with it in a little bit. For now, I'm just going to keep rubbing that burnt umber into the wood and see how it brings out the grain. I'm not going to use that small wood round there, so don't pay attention to that. So I made a larger version of the first small one, and I did not like it. It just looked straggly, and it was blending into the other flower, and it was too big for the wood round. So I cried a little tear, and then I took apart the big one and I made a smaller one, and this time I didn't add the burlap, so that way I was able to make it like super full and it'll stand out a little bit. So there, I started with the ribbon there, filled it nice and full, and then I just trimmed it to size. So I just trimmed it so it was a little bit bigger than the small one. I used like a wood glue, hot glue combination to affix them to the wood square. We also glued down some skewers for the stem, button for the middle, and at the last minute I made a couple of burlap leaves. Now, if I was thinking ahead, I would have made those stems shorter to leave space for the wood square to go in between the slats, but I did not. So I ended up, I was planning on putting the blocks on there, but I wasn't planning on gluing the square. But I ended up having to glue the square because it wasn't sitting down all the way. But that's what it looks like. Last minute I chose to make a border of twine, and I will show you a good look during the final reveal. What you need for this second project is, once again, the 7-pack of fabric, and then the package of vintage looking buttons. Now let's get to crafting. Project number 2 is a 10-piece wood ornament garland. I'm starting with these flower shapes from my stash, but I believe they came from Amazon originally. There's those lovely vintage buttons from Temu. There's here's the 7-piece black and white fabric pack from Temu. These bird ornaments, I believe, came from Dollar Tree. They're from my stash. And I'm just going to pull them off the garland string and use that for my garland. I'm creating a wash for the backs of these ornaments. So the birds are turquoise and the flower shapes are burnt umber. You see, I was a little bit too dark on the first ornament there, so I added more water. And then I made sure to wipe it well with a baby wipe after I got the color on. So I'll do the same for all 5 birds. Paint it on and wipe it off. And then for the flowers, I did the burnt umber. Just paint it on, wipe it off. I did the same for all 5. And that's the back side of the ornaments. I wanted the back side to be pretty, you know, in case it's in a window or somewhere where you can see both sides. Now I'm going to put Mod Podge on the front of the ornaments because that's where the fabric is going to go. So I chose a floral fabric for the birds and then a more generic fabric for the flowers. You want to put the ornament down on the side that you want the fabric on, and then you want to trace it on the back side of the fabric. And I learned the hard way. I actually 3 times cut it out wrong. So back side of the fabric, front side down on the back side. I hope that makes sense. I'm just putting a piece of parchment paper over the fabric and ironing it with my Hippo heat press, and I do the same for all 5 birds. Now I'm doing the flower shapes. They were a little bit more difficult. It was hard to get the petals on the edges cut. I'm doing the same, putting parchment paper on top and using my Hippo heat press to iron it down. And I'll do the same for all 5. Shazam! Look at that! Okay, I'm dry fitting the vintage wood buttons from Temu. And I just picked ones that I thought popped a little bit more than the others. And then I'm just going to use a marker here to define some of the edges of the petals because of the way the fabric fit. And now I'll put those buttons down on the birds for the eyes and down on the flower ornaments for the center of the flower. And I'll do the same for all the birds and the same for all the flowers. I'm just using hot glue because it's wood to fabric, so I thought that would be fine. But on the back, on the wood to wood, the wood buttons to the wood ornaments, I'm using some wood glue. And using that glue spreader from Temu. And I'll do the same for all 5 backs of the ornament. Now I'm going to choose a fabric that I'm going to make strips from and tie in between the ornaments. So the start of the ornament, the end of the ornament, and then in between the ornaments. It's going to be like bird flower, bird flower, bird flower, etc. So I picked this fabric partly because it's easy to create strips from it. I just cut in maybe about 1/2 inch or so, and then I just tore them apart. I did the whole piece of fabric. I had a couple strips left over, but I'll hang on to them. Now I'm just going to finish up by showing you how I'm putting them on the ornament string. I used a piece of floral wire to pull it through, and I pulled it through from the front. So I tied a piece of fabric at the beginning, just in a regular knot. And then where the string is pulled through, I'm going to gather it at the top of the ornament and tie a piece of string around it so it makes a loop. And then I'll just tie that string into a shoelace bow. I'll do the exact same thing for all 10 ornaments. And you'll see the finished product during the final reveal. What you need for this third project is a glue spreader. I used mine to spread wood glue, and then a silicone mold. I used mine with clay. Now let's get to crafting. Project number 2 is chalked flowers. So I took this Dollar Tree tag sign and I used my miter saw to cut the top part off. I also used my miter saw to cut a 45-degree angle on these wood dowels, and that's a saw there in the bottom left. And I like cutting 45-degree angles in my frames because I think it makes it look that much more high-end. And I highly recommend that brand of saw. And I think mine is the 10-inch. Now, I attempted to get all the paper off on that side, but I got frustrated and stopped. So I just flipped it over and started painting it black. I wanted to paint it black because in all the how-to videos I see for Chalk Couture, they're using a black background with a fancy white frame. So I decided to do my version of it. I stopped painting there because I realized there was still some sticky residue from the tag. So I waited for it to dry, and then I sanded that middle part and smoothed it down, and then I came back with a second coat. Then I just sanded the edges of those frame pieces, and I painted them all white, and I tried to remember to leave the downside raw wood because I want to use wood glue to attach it. Now, Chalk Couture does have its own surface wax or clear surface wax, but I have this white wax. It's either Waverly or Folk Art. And I use it and I just sort of rub it on with a paper towel and then just keep rubbing it down till it's smoothed out. Now this is not the stencil that was on my table at the beginning of this project, because after trimming it and adding the frame, I realized it wasn't going to fit. So I've used this stencil once before. It's been about a year or so. And so I decided to sort of make my own version because the whole stencil doesn't fit, but you can sort of lift it and put it back down again. So that's what I'm doing. I used some nice sage chalk paste to do the leaves and the stems, and then I picked out a couple of colors that I thought would look good for flowers. And I would just like do one color and then lift it, and do another color and lift it. Then I realized that middle flower was just too dark, so The nice thing about chalking is you can wipe it off with just plain water, which is what I did. Then I took some of that dark chalk paste and used it to paint in the middle of those flowers. Then I made sure everything was dry so I wouldn't smudge it, and I came back in and redid that middle flower with a brighter color. And I'm so glad I changed it. I think it looks awesome. Now I grabbed my frame pieces and I did my 2 glue combination. So I put down some wood glue and then filled in the blank areas with the hot glue. Did the exact same thing for each piece. Then I came in with some of that lightweight spackle just to sort of fill in the cracks, make it look a little bit more high-end. And it takes like the smallest amount of spackle there. Now I did these air dry clay molds ahead of time, and I wasn't sure which ones I would like, but I settled on these smaller ones that look like corner pieces. It actually broke on me when I was handling it, so I just hot glued it and pressed it down into the other part, and it looks fine. You can't even tell. So I just did 2 of those. I sort of like that look. Then I came in with a little bit of an olive green and burnt umber, just to sort of define the edges of the frame and also to make those corner decorations pop. It came out fantastic, don't you think? Better look at the final reveal. What you need for this 4th project is some scrapbook pages. I got mine from Temu a long time ago, and they are sold out now, but they have lots of different options. Also, these plastic pots, I got a variety of colors. They're available in single colors now, and this floral foam. Let's get to crafting. The first project is this yellow and blue pot. I'm using these plastic pots that I got from Temu quite a long time ago. Those yellow flowers, I don't know how to pronounce them, but I got them at Dollar Tree. Little signs, I believe, came from Dollar Tree as well. I threw out the packaging. And then I also have this scrapbook paper that I purchased from Temu a while ago too. I actually kind of forgot I had it, so I was quite excited to use it for this project. So it's going to do yellow and yellow, but I chose to do blue and yellow because I thought the contrast would be pretty. I actually cut out the wrong part of this paper. I meant to cut out the one right next to it, but instead I cut out the one in the corner. But I didn't realize until I had done all the gluing and everything, so I decided to keep it. So it's not technically spring-ish, but it's pretty and the colors are spring-ish, so I left it. I do, however, give the image and the flowers their own pot later on, because I couldn't get the image in where it wasn't making the pot tip over, so I gave it its own pot and plunked it right down in the middle. So I forgot this was glue. I was thinking it was Mod Podge, and then I remembered I had ripped out a little bit of the label to help me remember. But I took it apart here because I meant to put a piece of cardboard in the middle just to like stiffen it up and make it more sturdy. So it's good that this was glue because it glued everything together. It's bad that it was glue because I put it on the front of the image thinking it was Mod Podge, so it didn't really do what Mod Podge normally does, but it ended up okay. So I plucked this onion grass from a couple of picks I had from Dollar Tree, And I just used floral tape to wrap them around a piece of skewer. I did that 2 or 3 times. Floral tape isn't sticky, it's waxy, so you either have to like pull it before you use it, or stretch it as you're using it. Once I had the little picks done, I just kind of ran my fingernail over the pieces of grass, trying to get them to go in different directions instead of straight up. And you'll notice the sign is sort of hanging over at the edge there, and that's why I ended up changing it. I also added in this pretty butterfly that had the monarch butterfly coloring, and I thought that just made it. It came on a pick with flowers, and I'll give you a better look during the final reveal. What you need for this 5th and final project is some floral foam and a bunch of items from your stash, many of which could probably be purchased at Temu as well. So let's get to crafting. Our first project is a flower and shell wind chime. There's some pretty shells here that I got from Dollar Tree, as well as some leftover from previous packages. This is a floral solar light that I got from the Dollar Tree. So it has that little paper in there that you don't take out until the last minute, and that's what activates the battery and gets it started working. There was a tin can there, but don't worry about that because I ended up not using it. It was too small, it was sharp, it cut me, so I went a different way with that. I'm just using a small drill bit to put a hole in the top of the shells that is big enough to put a piece of twine through. And these thinner shells are pretty easy to do. The ones that are curved on the outside tend to take a little bit longer. So this is a bucket from Dollar Tree that was in my stash. I'm going to drill 8 holes in the bottom because we are going to hang 8 shells. And how, you ask? Well, let me show you. So I've put the twine through the shell from the top and tie a knot on the inside. Then I thread the twine through the hole on the bottom and up into the bucket. I thread a bead onto the twine. Then I mark on the rope where I want to tie the bead, and the first 2 for me were really hard because I had to stick my hand down in the bucket and I had to try and do the knot, and I was barely able to hold on to it. Once you get past the second one, it's a lot easier. You just pull the string up, you let the shell hang down as you like it, just as long as they're touching. It doesn't matter if they're touching in the middle or on the edge or on the bottom or near the top. Just as long as it's touching, you're golden. So just go ahead and mark the spot with your finger and thumb, and then pull the string up, and keeping your finger and thumb in that spot, let the bead come down and tie a knot there. And it basically creates like a little spiral of hanging shells. Now I'm going to put a couple of these floral foam pieces, and I was just checking the height of the stake, and I actually end up taking the stake off, and I still have the stake, and I might put it back on. I just have not decided yet if I want that flower flat in the bucket, and I'll show you what it looks like. So I was just checking to make sure it's working, and it is, and right away, so I was happy about that. So for now, you'll see me just poking it into the floral foam, and actually don't take the stake off until I have it outside. I chose some yellowish and pinkish florals that were in my stash. Something that, you know, went along with the orange of the floral, of the solar floral? Floral solar light? Whatever you want to call it. And then to finish things off, I just, I drilled 2 holes in the top there and just tied some rope on either side to hang it.